of cap and trade or pollution permits. Now you ask yourself, gee whiz, Obama was elected president, right? And he was advocating tradable pollution permits. We've been under his direction as our president for 3 years. Do you see any pollution permits around? Why? It's certainly part of his ideology. He believed it was the right answer, right? Go ahead. Oh, no, but you have to answer my question, then we'll go to your question. Why, for 3 full years, has the current executive branch of the U.S. government failed to implement tradable cap-and-trade pollution permits? Okay, yes? Damn right it does. It has everything to do with the state of the economy. Because all of the polluters are out there arguing that if you introduce this now, unemployment's going to go even higher. So wait until the economy's doing well, and then we can introduce such cap-and-trade policies. Go ahead, I'm sorry, now you can ask your question. But why? If you're taxing the externality, if you're pricing the externality through these corrective taxes, you're going to provide incentive for them, this concentrated group that's going to, you say they're going to increase the amount of pollution, as in the simple example, right? But there's a reduction in pollution elsewhere, right? So in your world, in your hypothetical world, everybody that lives around the concentrated polluter should move. It should go somewhere else, right? Go next to the people that have low cost of abatement and locate around them. Yeah, right. Yes, you got a question? You got it? Okay. By the way, there's no empirical evidence to support that argument. Yeah, that's a different matter. I think I know where you're going. Logically, you're saying, by the way, is that really credible? But the fear of government, when you're looking at 9 or 10% unemployment, it's easy to convince you of a lot of things that may not be true. Because if you're coming up for a re-election, it's one thing to attempt to be re-elected if the unemployment rate is 7.5 or 7. It's currently at 8, right? But if it were at 12%, my dog could win the election. All right. I'm sorry, Jimmy. What prevents them? Yes, it depends. Once again, it depends on the market for pollution permits. What is their demand and what is their supply? There's a demand and supply curve in that market. I gave you part of the answer by specifying that so I could get to the real fundamental result. But yes, if you're doing a complete analysis, and by the way, there are not just 2 firms in the economy, there are many firms, right? And all of them could be trading. And there's a group of efficient people on the supply side of that pollution permit market, and the inefficient ones are on the demand side, right?
If you're under whatever the pricing some all you still
No, is it if it turns out that somebody's really efficient with regard to abatement and there's a hefty tax on pollution, why would you go out of business? On the contrary, you would be a more effective competitor, right? Okay. All right. Corrective taxes versus tradable pollution permits. There is a distinction, right? And coming back to Jimmy's point that he just made, when we look at the market for pollution permits, on one side of the market is going to be those who are the most inefficient abaters, so they want to buy permits, they're willing buyers. And on the supply side are going to be those that are the efficient abaters, and they're going to supply to the marketplace those permits. Now, there will be a solution to that market which will give you the quantity of pollution that takes place. If we use instead a corrective tax, the corrective tax tries to set the price on that externality. The 2 outcomes will be equivalent if you select the price that's internally consistent with the outcome of the quantity moving through the pollution market. We'll give you exactly the same outcome. So when you say, oh, gee whiz, what are the advantages of the corrective tax versus pollution permits, cap and trade? Obviously, it turns on the facts, but it is possible to get a corrective tax that will give you the same outcome as the creation of a tradable permit market for pollution. Okay? And moreover, if the government or the policymakers don't know the actual position of the demand curve, the permit system may allow the achievement of a pollution production target more efficiently or more precisely. Okay? Now, if you look at the history of environmental policies in this country, dealing in particular mostly with negative externalities, some people would argue, particularly environmentalists, the most extreme environmentalists would say, no, we should have command and control. We shouldn't use economic incentives because you can't put a price on the environment. Right? At the end of the day, you can put a price on everything. People face trade-offs. The value of clean air and water must be compared against their cost. You're never going to get the right answer, at least in terms of economic efficiency. Now, you may have a different value judgment, but we're focusing on economic efficiency. What's the total size of the pie? How to maximize the total size of the pie? And as a result, we must, if we're pursuing a cleaner, more sustainable environment, we have to stop and ask ourselves the cost. Now, coming back to the example of what's happened in the Obama administration with regard to cap and trade, the arguments for some, particularly those who don't want the cap and trade imposed upon them, their argument is that the cost is too great. It is an empirical question, but it's a serious public policy question about what is the real cost. But to find the right answer, you've got to compare what, once again, the incremental value is to the incremental cost. Yes? Right, it may turn out, coming back to Jimmy's point, it may turn out that you have to shut down the firm. We'll look at an example in a moment where you've got a factory located against a lake. And the question is, the factory is polluting the lake, and they can continue to operate as long as they don't have to bear those external costs. If you impose those external costs on them, coming back to our discussion about shutdown, you may end up with a shutdown. And you may end up with an exit from the industry. Does that serve societal interest? Right? Okay? Okay, the market-based approach reduces the cost of environmental protection. And if the cost of environmental, and this is a positive economic argument, and it's the one that all economists will make in debates with pure environmentalists. I don't know that there is such a thing, but let's suppose hypothetically there is. The best argument that economists can make, if I can lower the cost of protecting the environment, then society should demand more of it. Right? Makes good sense. Okay. Private solutions to externalities. Now we're going to turn to the Coase theorem. Up till now, everything we've discussed is the government has to get involved, introducing some policies, ideally to change the incentives that would exist in a private self-interested system. All right? Now we're going to look at the different types of private solutions that are out there. One moral code that we all do our best to live by, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For example, you don't drive down the street throwing gum to an innocent bystander, right? Because you wouldn't expect them to do that to you, right? That's a golden rule. It doesn't work well enough to solve societal problems. Charities, the Sierra Club, the Trust for Public Lands, the Nature Conservancies, all of these organizations are non-profitable, charitable organizations that are in the business of protecting the environment. The Trust for Public Lands goes out and buys properties and maintains those properties for whom? For the public interest. You know the big Hollywood sign? Everybody's seen that. Isn't it atrociously ugly? But nevertheless, that was a private property that owned the Hollywood sign. My daughter works for the Trust for Public Lands, and they spent 8 years buying that property to put it into a public trust. And it turns out that one of the major contributors for the purchase of that land turned out to be Hugh Hefner. Everybody knows Hugh Hefner is. By the way, you know how tall he is, according to my daughter? He's only 5 foot tall. He seems so much bigger. That's if and only if you grew up reading the Playboy magazine. But in any event, the contract between market participants and affected bystanders, this is the Coase solution. This last bullet really goes to the Coase solution. And I'm going to look at the application of the Coase theorem, and we're going to look at it again and again. We're going to see it many times in the balance of the semester for those situations where it works. And we're going to be able to separate those real-world examples where the Coase theorem works versus when it doesn't work. And the outcome, according to Coase, there are 2 key factors, necessary and sufficient conditions. One, there can be no transaction costs, 0 transaction costs. And you might throw up in your hands and say, stop, I don't want to hear any more, because in the real world there's always transaction costs, right? Please don't say that, because we have to understand the basic concepts. And secondly, it doesn't matter who you assign the property right to. Let's look at a concrete example. Let's suppose that Dick owns a dog named Spot. Here's Spot. He barks all the time. He generates a negative externality on Jane, Dick's neighbor. Now, the socially efficient outcome is to maximize Dick plus Jane's well-being. Right? Just like when we look at total surplus in a private market in which there's no market failures, what we're doing is maximizing the economic well-being of all the buyers and sellers in that market. Right? And it's the same story here. If Dick values having Spot more than Jane values peace and quiet, the dog should stay. Right? As simple as that. And that is the Coase theorem. The private market will reach the efficient outcome on its own if, in fact, that is the outcome. Now, let's look at a couple of examples, 2 cases in which there's a slight difference in the benefit and or cost to each of these 2 parties, Dick and Jane. In particular, suppose the benefit to Dick of having Spot can be monetized, and it's $500. The cost to Jane of Spot's barking is $800. What's the outcome? Pardon? What is it, Jake? The dog certainly's got to go. Notice one thing here. The dog has no property rights. None. So he's not a party to these negotiations. Anyway, the socially efficient outcome is Scott goes bye-bye. Spot goes bye-bye. Not Scott, but Spot. Okay, the private outcome, Jane can pay more than the benefit to Dick to get rid of Spot. And that's exactly what will happen, and thus the efficient outcome is equal to the private outcome. Let's go to a second case, where the property right, Dick has a right to keep Spot, and now the benefit to Dick of having Spot is $1,000. The cost to Jane of Spot's barking is $800. Now, Spot does not leave. He stays, right? And the socially efficient outcome is that Spot stays, and the solution will be a actual non-negotiated outcome. And as a result, that is sourced with the fact that Dick has the property right of keeping Spot. But the private outcome is equal to the efficient outcome. Let's take still a third case. And now let's suppose you're in a community or a society which values quiet, values peace and quiet. And as a result, every member of this community, including Jane, has a property right to peace and quiet. Okay? And the benefit to Dick of having Spot is $800. The cost to Jane of Spot's barking is $500. Once again, the socially efficient outcome is that Dick keeps Spot. Why or how? Dick will end up paying to Jane more than the cost to her of the barking of Spot. And she's better off. Dick is better off. And the private outcome is equal to the efficient outcome. And the key insight of this simple example is that the private market achieves the efficient outcome regardless of who has the property right. That is to say, does Jane have the property right to peace or quiet, or does Dick have the property right to having a dog? All right. Now let's look at an example. You asked the question about, or at least I interpreted your question about shutdown conditions. Let's suppose that there is in a local community, there's 1,000 residents in Green Valley, and there's a blue lake. And their value of being able to swim in that clear blue lake is $100,000. But there's a nearby factory that pollutes that lake. And the nearby factory, if it could invest or would invest $50,000, they could put in place abatement equipment to eliminate the pollution, their generation of negative externality polluting that lake. Okay? Those are the basic facts. Now, coming to Coase, right away, it's clear that there's a solution here, right? And stop and ask yourself, who has a property right to the lake? Do those 1,000 residents have a property right to that lake? Or does the factory have a right to that lake? For example, if the factory owned the lake, let's suppose it's a man-made lake. Let's suppose they constructed the man-made lake. It's their lake. They own the property. There's private property of land holdings, and they can pollute it all they wanted, right? In contrast, let's suppose the lake was there before the factory arrived, and the lake was used by members of the community for their leisure time activity of swimming in this beautiful blue lake, right? The factory comes along later and begins to pollute it. Now, Coase says, I don't care which of these 2 fact patterns is true. I don't care whether the factory has the property right or the 1,000 residents of Green Valley have the property right. There is a solution here. Okay? And this is the active learning example. I want you to, we only have a few moments left, think about this, describe a Coase-like private solution, and then can you think of reasons why this solution might not work in the real world? Okay? And given that we've only got a few moments left, I'm sure it's occurred to all of you it's a very simple solution because the value to the 1,000 residents is $100,000. All they have to do is come along and agree that each of them would pay some minimal amount larger than the $50,000 that the factory needs to make the investment. And if they do that, they get a clean light, and the factory continues to operate. That's the Coasian solution. Now, going to B in this question, why might that not work? Go ahead. Right. And why? What is the principal obstacle to coordination? Say what? Yeah, I was thinking of something much simpler. If I try to coordinate 1,000 residents, a lot of them are going to try to free ride on me, right? If you ever had, I own a ranch, not in Green Valley, but Grass Valley, and there's a road, and there's 5 or 6 neighbors that are along this road. The road needs to be renovated and improved. Now, everybody would hope that somebody would step forward and pay for the entire cost of doing so and make a free ride on it. If you go around with your hat out and say, listen, the total cost is and our share is and this is an equitable distribution, a number of those people will try to free ride, so you never get a solution. So that's one problem. It's the coordination problem. In addition to the coordination problem, there are transaction costs. You know, maybe you have to have a lawyer come along and draw up a contract and make it enforceable legally. So if the factory sometime in the future ends up polluting the lake, you can bring a suit against them and collect damages for the harm that they caused. But that lawyer may come along and want too much money for their services. Hence, you won't get a solution. Stubbornness. Some people think they can forge a better deal and they try to extract rents from the benefit of the bargain, and thus they never reach a solution, and then you're pointed out coordination problems. And we finished just in the nick of time. Thank you.